In the US, the first person diagnosed with Ebola on American soil has died. Thomas Duncan went to hospital in Texas after traveling to Liberia to visit family. The news emerging as the US ordered agents at airports and other entry ports to observe people coming into the country for signs of Ebola. Let's now cross to our correspondent in Washington, Philip Crowther. Philip, so doctors were unable then to save Thomas Duncan?
Yes, after 11 days in hospital in Dallas, Thomas Eric Duncan, arrived in that hospital on the 28th of September after first developing symptoms on the 24th. That was 4 days after coming to the United States from Liberia. Thomas Eric Duncan died at 7:51 a.m. Local time. The hospital calls it an insidious disease that he succumbed to, and says he fought courageously. This man, Thomas Eric Duncan, he had been in isolation for all this time, for these 11 days, and his status passed from critical to stable and back to critical again. He still, though, remains that only case of Ebola diagnosed in the United States. There have been no other cases diagnosed since he arrived in the United States.
And Philip, what can you tell us about the latest screening measures?
Well, there's supposed to be more screening measures at U.S. airports to see symptoms, possible symptoms of Ebola. Now, that's, of course, a lot easier said than done, because a lot of the symptoms you might see, well, they might look like flu symptoms at first. It's a pretty optimistic plan on behalf of the administration, but those screening measures should be put in place pretty quickly. There is a bit of urgency here in the United States for there to be measures put in place as quickly as possible. There isn't just that. There's that military response from the United States in West Africa as well. And what we just heard from the Secretary of State, John Kerry, just a few minutes ago, he's asking other countries to move quicker to put in place measures in West Africa, get people over there and give some money to West African countries to put in place hospitals, for example. There's also a call from John Kerry to keep the borders open in West Africa. That, in addition to up to possibly 4,000 American soldiers being sent to the three affected countries at the moment to put up field hospitals, for example. The promise still remains the same from the Center for Disease Control, from its director, Thomas Frieden. You might remember when that first case was announced, the case of Thomas Eric Duncan, now deceased. The promise from the CDC was that there is no doubt that the United States will be able to control Ebola in the United States, and that the country will be able to stop Ebola in its tracks. Again, there hasn't been another diagnosed case since Thomas Eric Duncan, and that includes anybody who had been in touch with him during those 4 days that he had the symptoms and was not yet admitted to hospital.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Philip. Philip Crowther reporting there.